All right. Hello. Thanks for joining, everybody. This is Bridging the Surveying Data Technology Gap presented by FARO. We also wanted to thank XYHT Magazine as well as Connect Me for hosting this. So we appreciate that. My name is Brady O'Brien. I work for FARO Technologies. I've been here for about 8 years, but 15 years in the reality capture world. I've been selling for the AEC team, architects, engineering, and construction, and just helping implement our products into the industries. Let me go to my next slide. During this webinar, you're going to learn how you're going to use reality capture devices other than traditional surveying techniques. And not just tripod laser scanners, but mobile mappers with photorealistic imagery. So with high accuracy. So we have our survey Jason Loader with Kaw Valley Engineering. And then we also have Ken Smillie, who's also has 30 plus years of experience in the geospatial world and has been at FARO for many, many years, as you can see. So if you're attending, thanks for attending. We appreciate your time. We know it's valuable. So thank you for joining, and we're going to go ahead and start our first survey here, if we want, or our first poll, I guess you want to call it, if you want to go ahead and get that started. We just want to kind of get some information on where you're from, what area you're located, and just kind of get some more information about who's joining us here today. All right, I'm going to just kind of move on a little bit here, and we'll get those poll results here in a second. But just real quick about FARO, we've been in the world of not only architects, engineering, construction, but the metrology world as well. But today we're kind of talking about the geospatial world. And these are the types of products that you can use for those industries. We have our traditional tripod focused laser scanner, which many in the industry for many years are very familiar with. Also is very is in the industry is our 360 photos, which you can capture with a camera and just using a phone app, or our blink imaging scanner, which was just released about a month ago. It's more of an image-based laser scanner, really, really fast, really, really high resolution imagery, but also great accuracy as well. And then mainly what we're going to focus on here today is our Orbis mobile mapper and that product line in general, and kind of the history of that product and where it came from, where it's at now, and just give you some data and some ways Jason is using that product in the field for surveying right now. So if we wanted to go ahead and get the first poll results up, we can put those up. And oh, great. We got a lot of people that responded to the poll, so that's good. Appreciate all that. A lot from the US, a few from other countries like Canada and Europe. That's cool. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate that. All right, so again, we're going to talk about the Orbis mobile mapper. Kind of what you're seeing on the screen, and I don't know if anybody's from the Illinois area, is actually Navy Pier. It's a part of Navy Pier. It's not the whole Navy Pier, as we know. It's a humongous area. But what it is, it's a quick scan done with our Orbis mobile mapper. It took about 11 minutes to complete this whole scan. I walked around with the Orbis mobile mapper, also stopping and doing stationary scans, which are called flash scans in between all that. So real quick, I just want to jump live into some data and show it to you in our scene software. So after it's all processed, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get a bunch of photos extracted out every few seconds as you're walking around a trajectory line, but also great data collected, and a lot of nooks and crannies collected as well. Not only is that data collected, but a photo is taken. So you get nice high res 360 photos as well. So you can even look around, you can even measure from these photos. And then again, you can stop and do what we call flash scans, or a stationary scan within the mobile session that gives you a little bit higher accuracy than the mobile data. So it gives you that nice high accuracy flash scan of this data as well. Okay, I'm going to kind of jump back to my presentation here if it's easy. Apologize for that. Just caught up, okay? All right, and then right now, I just wanted to kind of get your hopes up about what this product can do and kind of the data quality you can get from it, the accuracy you can get from it. And I just wanted to kick it over to Ken here, who's with the FARO Technologies teams, but has over 30 years of experience with this product, and he'll kind of talk about his role and the history of Orbis and GeoSLAM. Ken?
Thanks, Brady. Just before I go into the history of the SLAM-based laser scanners, I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit. I'm working in business development and FARO Technologies currently, but as you can see there, I've got a background mainly in land surveying. After getting a degree in topographic science, which is a little bit like geomatics degree in the UK, I moved out to the UAE in the Middle East after being a land surveyor in open pit mining for about 6 years. Went to the Middle East and carried out some really interesting land survey and aerial survey projects out in the Middle East and Africa. After that, I joined the sort of sales and marketing side of the business. I was in sales management, technical sales, business development roles with a few of the usual manufacturers out there, like Geosystems. I was with them for a while. And I came back to the UK and joined a company called 3D Laser Mapping, which eventually became GeoSLAM. GeoSLAM was acquired by FARO in 2022. But one of the reasons why GeoSLAM was purchased by FARO was to acquire the handheld laser scanning technology, which GeoSLAM basically had invented. So if we have a look at the next slide, Brady. So just to give a little bit of background about where laser scanning or mobile or handheld units come from, GeoSLAM was established in 2011 and came out with its first handheld scanner, which was the ZEB1. Now, this was a collaboration between GeoSLAM at the time and also with FARO, which is an Australian government body who had created the laser scanning SLAM algorithms. They were the pioneers on this, and together with GeoSLAM, we created a solution which was called the ZEB1. The ZEB1, why was it called that? It was actually named after Zebedee, which was a character in a children's cartoon at the time. And the reason it was chosen was the scanner was a Hikoyu 2D scanner, laser scanner. But to get the movement, it was placed on a spring and it moved around, similar to the character did in the TV show. Very soon after that, we realized that rotating the laser scanner gave a much better and consistent result. So we moved on to the ZEB Revo in 2015. The SLAM algorithm progressed from a bureau service into a laptop-based software package called Hub. After that, you can see from the graphic there that there was continual improvement through the years. We had a real-time system whereby you could see the point cloud, the laser points build up on a phone or a tablet in front of you to check, for instance, for quality control, to see that you'd actually captured all of the information that you were out there to capture. And then we moved on to the second generation, which was the ZEB Horizon in 2018. This featured a Velodyne LiDAR, which collected more points, was a little bit faster, and in collaboration with a camera, was able to then colorize the point clouds. Through basically to the 2022, where the ZEB Horizon RT was launched, along with the Vision camera, which was an accessory at that point, and that allowed you to get the 360-degree panoramas, which Brady just showed you a moment ago, as well as colorizing the point clouds that were produced in real time by the Horizon RT. As I mentioned a moment ago, that meant that in September 22, FARO came knocking on the GeoSLAM door, who I used to work for, and from then on, the development of the next generation has continued on under the auspices of FARO Technologies. So that's the background from the mobile mapping, mobile laser scanning situation from the start in 2013 with GeoSLAM through to the latest generation from FARO Technologies. Back over to you, Brady.
Awesome. That's great. And one of the big things that we'll talk about here is just the data differences, from the Zeb to the Orbis. Once we did acquire that company, we did update the puck that goes on the LiDAR puck sensor. So we actually doubled the density. And then eventually we put a different camera on it that you see. So you can see the Zeb Vision up there with the old camera, and then the blue and black, the blue colored FARO Orbis one with the new camera on it. So we have a couple different options for the Orbis, but we also have the old GeoSlam products as well to sell here at FARO. And things have just keeps getting better. The data keeps getting more. The photos get better. It gets faster capturing it. And one thing we haven't mentioned too much is, on the bottom of this is a reference plate to capture reference points. So you can always set it down over a reference point on the ground or on the wall and capture an XYZ coordinate and tie that to control, which Jason will talk about here a lot as well. So I'll kick it over to you, Jason. If you want to I'll stop sharing here and then you can pull up your slides if you're on. I know you kind of jumped off there for a minute.
Yeah, I will
joined us.
pick up there.
Awesome.
Let me figure out how to share my screen.
Yep, you're good.
Share. I believe that's the correct one.
We got you.
All right. My name is Jason Loader. I'm a professional surveyor. I work for a civil engineering firm for about 26 years now. I started when I was 19, my freshman summer out of college. Got the survey bug, went back to school, got an associate's degree in surveying technology. Started out with a transit and a chain, a T16. I worked with an old school surveyor. He was reluctant to embrace modern technology, and I've just worked my way up through this company and tried to always stay on top of new trends, and just the rest is history, I guess. But we acquired a Zeb. I started my handheld scanning with the Zeb Revo, which was a very interesting tool and really enjoyed. We did purchase a Zeb Horizon in 21, I believe, and then we bought the Vision camera in 22 when it first came out. And it was a huge step up from the Zeb Revo. And as you'll see, I got a few projects that I'd like to showcase that we use this technology on, and kind of show you how that worked out for us. The first job I want to talk about, this was a soil dam repair that we did where they had to tear out and patch some abnormal shaped, I don't know what the term is, but holes in the dam to repair it. And it was very important they had accurate concrete quantities because the contractor was only going to be paid based on these as-built, not what their tickets told them. So they wanted to get as accurate as possible of what was actually placed versus what their concrete tickets showed. So with that challenge, it was more than I think more detail was needed than what you could get with a terrestrial total station, just out there shooting points with a rod and a prism. So what we did is we set control along this dam and used globes. And this is kind of a screenshot of the globe. And as you can see, pictures, it's clearer on the computer than it is in this picture, but it kind of gives you the idea that, you can see this. And what we did was, wrong button, sorry. The software we have doesn't have a globe registration. So I created a spreadsheet that you can pick 4 points on that globe. It does all the averages and picks the best fits. And if you look at this, you can see those errors. I don't know if my mouse will show. The accuracy we got from the center of that sphere based on all the possible combination of intersection of those 4 points was within a couple hundredths. And when we use that data then to georeference this into our coordinate system, and the worst error we ever had was maybe 6 or 7 hundredths. between globe to globe, which was
And that's
pretty
with the
impressive.
older unit, Jason?
Yeah, that was with the Zeb Horizon.
What year was that, Ken, that came out?
I believe we did this in 23.
23. Okay. So,
Yeah.
but when did that unit come out essentially on the market? I mean, it had to be a 5-6 year old scanner.
Yeah, because I think, what'd you say, Ken? It was 18, I believe, the Zeb Horizon came
Yeah,
out.
yeah. The original Horizon was 18, and then the RT was 22.
And when we originally got it, it had the like GoPro camera on it. And the vision was a huge upgrade in the colorization of that data.
Awesome.
And I wanted to,
it just shows you it's just as accurate as
yeah.
traditional
And
map.
that's kind of why I wanted to show this and not get into the weeds of all the calcs, but the accuracies that we were able to get. So,
Great.
And then the next slide is just a zoom in of those accuracies again. As you can see, I mean, and this is in US feet, so it's in hundredths of a foot, not metric. This is a blow up of one of the holes, cleaned up a little bit, and I outlined it to kind of make it a little clearer, but you can kind of see these depressions and oblong irregular shapes. This hole actually goes up into here. You can kind of see. So what I wanted to do was I made a surface, which makes it a little bit easier to see. And then when you go to the next slide, that's the patch. And then that's the patch surface. You can see where they filled that in. And I think one thing that the handheld scanner, one, it was quick. I mean, it was a 1.5 mile dam, and you could get it all the data collected originally for our initial run within a workday. And then they'd have, 5-10 patches available at a time, and we'd go out there and we could have those scanned within probably an hour or two. It took longer to set the prisms up than it did to
Yeah.
And we did globes on this one. Just we had not tested, like you said, the stop and go alignment, but since then we have, and it actually is quite impressive how well that geo.
I think, Jason, I like this application because I think it demonstrates a few things. One, of course, is the ease of georeferencing and the need for georeferencing in survey applications, and the speed and so forth. But the other thing is that is volumetrics. Laser scanning has made a big difference to volumetric calculations. Let's say in many different applications, for instance, mining or quayside stockpiles, you can collect information in mass data so that the shape and the form of the stockpile or the material that you're measuring is much more clearly defined than if you were doing it as point by point with a GPS or a total station prism. So you get the ability to have a better shape, and that inevitably means a better calculation. So volumetrics and laser scanning is a really good application. I think this shows it very well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And with this, I can't quote the exact number, but it was like 350 cubic yards is what the concrete tickets had that they placed, and we were within 10 cubic yards of that. So the contract, they had a little grace there, and the contractor got paid 100% of the concrete that they ordered, which made them very happy.
Awesome.
And this is another one, a separate job. This is the job we actually tested the stop and go alignment on, and I'll get into that in a second. But this was on a military installation, and they were going to put in a drainage pipe through a levee, and they had to know how many trees were going to get tore out and the exact diameter of the trunks of these trees, because the government was going to require the land or the contractor to plant an equal number of inches of diameter trees. So if you took out 30 inches, they had to plant 30 inches of trees. And on this one, what we did is this is just kind of a blow up inside, and you can see we put a target on the side of a tree that we could find with our Zeb with the handheld scanner. And in this one, we actually, with a total station, went in and shot these. It was in the winter, luckily, so you didn't have to worry about the foliage, but we also did a stop and go alignment on each one to kind of double check that this was my test, because I like to know how well things work.
And the reason for the stop and go alignment is it's just such a big area. You needed multiple runs and then tie those together,
Yes.
or what's the
Yes. So we used the stop and go alignment, And then we also used the stop and go georeferencing. I used that wrong term there too.
No, it's fine. It it just tells. It's good to tell people here on the call or on the webinar today is that you don't want to just scan for hours upon hours without stopping. That would just it becomes too much data for the unit to process. Right, there is a certain number of time where you have to at least stop it and then restart a new run, and that's what we're talking about. We can either stop and go and tie all those together, or we can make sure we just have a lot of overlapping between all the different runs that we do.
Yep.
But
And it
typically
does
30
work well.
to 45 minutes, maybe an hour you can push at times, but anything more than that, you'd want to break up.
Yep. And it does really well with the cloud-to-cloud registration as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
especially now that it went from that the GeoSlam software, and now we brought that into Scene, so you can process it in either or now.
Yep, absolutely. And then the next slide, this is how we did it. We basically made a what do you want to call it, a limit box or vision box or whatever term you're used to. We broke it down into grids once we realized the limits of what they needed for construction, and then just did like a 3-foot slice at like 4 foot, I think was what we used for our breast height. And you could go in here and you can actually see them trunks, and they just went in, and it was anything over 3 inches, I think, or 3 or 6 inches. I can't remember exactly. And I feel we got a pretty accurate representation of the number of trees that they were going to tear out. And again, time-wise, I think we did 2 days of scanning on this one just because of the terrain and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, to manually go in there and mark each tree and realize what you've done and not double up. I mean, I think in this case, doing it this way was invaluable. And you could always use, a drone or something, but then you don't know what kind of penetration you're going to get on the canopy and everything. And this was at ground level and you're walking it.
Yeah.
So you're getting
made sense for this application to be a ground. And with that, this unit can be put on a drone. We in the old GeoSlam days, we had mounting brackets to a drone that it could be flown if there wasn't a lot of coverage and if it was more exposed, and it made more sense. But for this application, I think it made more sense for the ground, the walking of the GeoSlam product. Yeah,
it worked really well. And with that, the next few slides are some data that Ken collected, and he kind of wanted to touch base on it, so I'll pass it to him for a little bit.
Thanks, Jason. Yes. As we know, after the ZEB Horizon and the takeover of GeoSlam by FARO, we then produced the first version of the FARO Orbis, which is the next generation of mobile laser scanning unit. I just wanted to show a little bit of data that was collected by this first version of the unit. Here we see a stand of trees in the Denver, Colorado area, and you can see the difference here. The ability for the trees to be clearly defined individually and also to be colorized with the camera that's attached to the system. And so it shows a very good quality of laser scanning. And do remember that the imagery is also available here as well. So species information is also very readily collected. The next slide, please, Jason.
Good.
This is another picture of something similar. Here we're in Scotland, where I'm from. What we were doing here is we were doing a digital version of the collection of a sample plot. In the forestry arena, they like to do sample plots, which then gives them a representative area within a whole forest. So they measure certain attributes of the trees, and then they extrapolate that to the whole forest. So within a certain area, which can be a fifth of an acre or a tenth of an acre, they will measure each individual tree. Now, using the traditional techniques, this would be like a reloscope or even a Biltmore stick, which is what the forestry people have used in the past with some tables to work out various parameters. But with laser scanning, you can go in there and collect that small area or even a much bigger area in a very short period of time and have this type of result. So you have the laser scan data of each individual tree, and you have the imagery to aid interpretation. And of course, as the saying goes about the trees in the forest, the biggest problem with using static laser scanning or other methodologies that are static, of course, is occlusions, i.e. you can't see what is behind the tree right in front of you. So the great thing about mobile or handheld laser scanning is you can go in, you can move around the trees and gain the data that you need in a very quick way. And that data can be georeferenced. Next slide, please, Jason. So the next couple of slides are the same image area from the processing software. As you can see here, the laser scanner has been, data has been colorized by height. So we start off with the blues at the bottom and go to the greens at the top. Again, very simple and easy, walking in amongst this tree stand to get highly accurate and complete data of that forest area. Next slide, please, Jason.
That one was empty, sorry.
No problem. And here we have the same area. As you can see, this the track that's in front of here, but the trees have been then colorized by the RGB information that's coming from the camera. Next slide, Jason. As you can see, here we have a little look at the species. On the left-hand side, you have one species of tree. In the middle, you have another one. Again, the other good thing about this is the data that's collected from the laser scanner can be used for multiple purposes. So for instance, if you want to have a digital terrain model, let's see, you want to see where the surface water runoff is going to go, you can create a terrain model from the laser scan data and use that to check on where the water is going to go. Maybe there's areas where the trees in the forest are not doing so well because they're not watered. So the laser scanning data can be used for more than one specific application. But certainly in the usage of commercial forestry, the main things that people are looking for are, of course, the volume of the wood of each tree. Next slide, please, Jason. Here we can see the forest area that we've just seen a moment ago in the software, the analytical software. This happens to be TerraSolid from Finland, and this data is actually from a Finnish forest over there. You can see that the software picks up each individual tree, and that is what is used for the analysis and the calculation of the volume data later on. Next slide, please, Jason. And here you can see that each individual tree within that area of the forest has been picked out by the software automatically based on some parameters. So the colors there indicate each individual tree. And then the software is able to take that individual tree, calculate the height, check the diameter and the circumference of the stem all the way up to the very top. And from that, it can calculate the wood volume, which is what the commercial forestry people want to see. And of course, if you go back on a repeat basis, whether it's yearly or more, you'll then see the growth rates. And the growth is also very interesting for commercial foresters to see what the yield will be of wood or timber at the end of the growing period, which can be quite a long time, admittedly. But checking on this also helps with the growth and the health of the trees in that particular area. Jason. Just to finish off here, sorry, Jason, just to finish off here, before we go into the next application, we'd like to throw up another poll. So what we'd like to know this is, what is your timeline of possible acquisition of laser scanning technology? And hopefully we'll be able to throw that poll up for you in a moment.
Awesome.
So whilst you're working on the poll, Jason, if you would like to take us away with another application.
I'll continue on to a different type of job. This project was just a standard property boundary survey in the country. And the title of the property went to the flow line of this channel. And, you know, typically we would go in there with our total station and cross section it every 50 feet, 100 feet, depending on the terrain, and get his best fit. Well, in this case, accuracy, it was high dollar piece of property, and they were paying by the square foot, believe it or not. And when I explained that to them, they said, well, we need it as close as possible. So what we did was, in this project, we ended up doing globes in the same method that we did on that dam project at the beginning. And this is a cross section of the data that's been classified: the brown's the ground, and the green's the vegetation. And I wanted to show this because, it was again, this scanning was done in a day. If we had to cross section this creek, would have taken multiple days traditionally. But this cross section is a representation of kind of what we're getting to be able to establish the center line of that channel. Again, this was done in the wintertime, so vegetation wasn't an issue, but it was still dense enough that we could get around. And luckily it was dry. We did most of it walking down the channel and kind of did our loops and stuff through there. But one other slide I wanted to show is this is just a quick surface of that ground classification. And you can see that, I wouldn't say this is a civil design surface, but it clearly defines that channel. And we was able to get a nice spline through the center of this, very, I would say, vastly more accurate than we could have traditional methods for acreage and stuff of this property boundary. I thought, and we've done multiple jobs. We've used this on additional jobs. This was the first one that I tried it on, and was very impressed with the speed and the amount of data we got for what we needed it. So it wasn't even really for civil design. It was just for a good, accurate location of existing features.
Yeah, Jason, I like this particular slide. As I mentioned a moment ago about bare earth models or DTMs, DSMs, whatever you want to call them, it's great that the laser scanner was able to pick up that type of information very easily and very quickly. You can imagine the number of setups that you'd have to do with a static system. That's not to say that the static system has not got a place where the very highest accuracy is necessary, but where mobility, accessibility is required very quickly, then of course using a handheld laser scanner is great. And you can see from this that it produces a great product at the end.
Yeah, especially for, and I believe you could clean that data up and get an even, a very nice ground surface. And that was just a quick automatic classification. This next project was actually an Alta NSPS land title survey we had on a trailer park, and they wanted to know how many empty pads there were, how many, number of trailers, along with your standard Alta requirements. This is just an overview, and we actually did the colorized portion. We colorized, and you can see there's a river there, and we did not colorize that, but the colorized portion, we actually have a mount that we built for our Polaris utility vehicle, and drove it with the handheld on a magnetic plate that we stick on the front of it. We've done quite a few jobs like that as well. This is just a little bit of a close-up. You can kind of see the colorization, again, is far better than it was with the GoPro, but looking at Brady's data, it's definitely improved. It worked really well for this application, and as you can see, it gets the power lines. We've actually used it to measure sway of power lines and stuff like that. We actually scanned a substation for Evergy, which is our local energy company. And then this was kind of interesting. This is the Kansas River, and actually Kaw Valley is the Kaw Indian, the Kansas Indians, and that's how we got our name, because we're right at the start of the Kansas River. More history there. But we actually got in a boat and we floated up and down this river with the handheld scanner, because we had to establish its center line. And you can see that's the path, and there, you can see right here where we walked, that was where we started from, and then had a little trolling motor on a flat bottom boat and kind of zipped around this river. And we took a few ground shots where we could on the top of bank, and was very, very surprised at how close, at the accuracy we got, I should say. And this is just another cross section. As you can see, there's some sandbars and stuff, but you can easily depict the banks that we needed to establish the center line of this channel.
Jason, I really like this application as well. I think it's one of those ones where you've got the right tool for the right job. You have the ability with handheld laser scanning to scan the pads, scan the trailers, but then you can also immediately take it onto a river, which is just fantastic. And that's where the efficiency and productivity comes with handheld laser scanners. I know of other projects similarly in other parts of the world. There's one in Japan where the scanner was put into a boat, and they did that to go along the quayside of a major port to check on the where repairs were necessary to the concrete along the side of the quay. And it's not very easy to get that type of information if you're not on the water side. And of course, with SLAM algorithms, you don't need to be static, you don't need to be stopped. So you can bobble up and down in the boat, in the harbor to your heart's content and still collect really good, accurate data.
Yeah.
Similarly, there's an example from Australia, from New South Wales, where a customer took the boat and the handheld scanner to do detailed investigations underneath bridges that were going over the river. So you get information that would be very hard to get otherwise from any other methodology. So, the combination of doing the work on the land, but then immediately just walking straight down, getting onto a boat and capturing the same type of data, but on another platform, in this case, a boat. Really nice application.
Yeah, it worked out really well. I got two more projects. This is a historical building on a local military installation that has been vacant or hasn't been occupied for a while. And we were hired because they're getting ready to go in and renovate it. And they wanted basically an accurate floor plan and dimensions of the rooms and columns and everything, so the architect could do what they needed to do. And they also wanted the parking lots and everything. And this was actually a combination of some terrestrial scanner and the handheld scanner. We did a terrestrial scanner on the outside and used the handheld scanner on the inside. And this one we did solely stop and go alignment to get between the floors and tie everything together. Worked real well. This is just the handheld data. You can see it got the floor or the truss and everything in the roof. And just a couple of quick screenshots is that this is one of the floors, and you can see, in my opinion, you get a really good layout of the building, and you can see it's got all the column locations and everything for the structural interior of the building. And then this is kind of a cool image as well, where you can see all the floors and the stairwell. And we used the stairwell is how we got them together. But I was in the few checks we did, even just geo stop and go aligning through the stairwell, how level the floors were within each other. If you check, from your thickness from the ceiling to the floor, it's very consistent across there. And I was impressed with that.
Great application, Jason. I like this one because of the combination of the static laser scanning and the mobile laser scanning. But also, I think it shows that the mobile laser scanning is used not only in surveying outdoors, but also is very, very commonly used on indoor projects like this, commercial real estate, residential real estate, large malls, and that sort of thing. So it's a great versatile tool, not only on its own, but also in collaboration with static laser scanning systems.
Yeah, and I know the architect was very pleased with the product that we provided them on this project. And it actually has gotten us more projects with that same architect. I believe this is my last one, and this is a wastewater treatment plant. And again, it's one where we used terrestrial scanning and the handheld scanner. The colorized portion of this is what we did traditionally, and the grayscaled is the handheld scanner. And one thing that was nice on this was, again, this is just the terrestrial. That's the handheld. In the overlap, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, your terrestrial is going to be a little bit tighter, but then I call it noise, but it was very minimal. Again, I was impressed. And what we have found in using the handheld, you know, if you're doing a wall and you know a terrestrial, you might have, just for a round number, a 1/4 inch noise in there, and your terrestrial might be a 1/2 inch in there. But if you go center to center, they're pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah,
It's
that's cool.
it's pretty nice. And one reason we used it on this was we did the terrestrial, but we still had to locate all the little nooks and crannies, like kind of around all this stuff, and it had just been so many setups and so much time. And
Yeah.
so we used the handheld, and this was all put together through cloud to cloud registration. But and one thing too is, you know, this is one of the pits that we were able to use the handheld to walk this catwalk and get everything. And then if you zoom in, you can see all the weirs and everything. And then the engineer was able to tell us, hey, I see this. We need a little more information on it. So it gave us a quick, big picture of literally everything that's out there that we could walk. And then if the engineer needed something a little tighter, then we would go do what's necessary to get something a little bit tighter. And then I don't know why I didn't put a picture in it. I just remembered a couple buildings we had to scan inside as well, because they wanted to see where the pipes and stuff were coming into these buildings. And it worked really well for that, because we could just open the door, walk in, do it. We had everything outside. So again, that cloud to cloud registration tied everything together very nicely.
Awesome.
Similar to the last project, or last application you showed there, Jason, I think it shows a nice combination of using the right tool for the right application. You know, where you need a little bit more detail, maybe the highest accuracy, a static laser scanner works really well. But then areas that can be more difficult to capture, or you need to capture more quickly, let's say there's a time issue, you have to get in and out to an area, that's where mobile mapping comes into its use. Also, the efficiency. If you're going to have an instrument in your toolbox, you want to have one that's really efficient, you know, and efficiency is really about using resources the best you can to get the best return on investment. So one tool like a handheld laser scanner, you can use for multiple different applications, which we've just seen from all the great projects that you've done there, Jason. And that gives you a really good ROI, which I think in this day and age, people who are putting down their dollars, they want to see a really good ROI. And I think that's one of the reasons why the handheld scanners are doing so well. But great applications. Thanks, Jason.
Cool.
Sure.
Thanks,
Yep,
Jason.
that was it.
All right. Yeah, you stopped
back to you,
sharing.
Brady. I'll
take it
figure out how
over.
to quit sharing this.
Oh, there's the poll results from the timing. A few that don't have it, a few that have one, and a few that might buy soon. That's always good. Let me go ahead and share my screen one more time here. Here. Just the nice data set we looked at. And I'm just going to jump back to this slide quick. Of course, it's reversed. Just to rehash what we've been talking about. And I really wanted to jump in, but every time Ken was right there on it, and he said it every time. The right tool for the job. You know, we don't grab a hammer to do something a screwdriver will do. We won't grab, you know, something else that it's just not meant for. Grab the right tool for the job. And that's why FARO over the last few years has invested in some other tools. Forever, FARO has had the tripod-based laser scanner, the focus scanner, for many years. But one thing they really haven't had is a mobile-based solution, or 360 photos, or the imaging scanner we just released. So literally within the last 3 to 4 years, FARO has started introducing more products to their product line to use these tools for these different jobs. You know, like Jason said, like Ken said, there's the right tool for the job. So make sure you're using the right one for the efficiencies, for the accuracy needs, and for the time. You know, maybe you don't have the time on site, so you got to use one product over another. Or maybe you're just estimating at the time and you don't really need that high accuracy. The Orbis or the GeoSlam product is a great tool for that job. All right. I think we have one more poll here before we get into the Q&A, I believe. If we want to run that last poll here, what can we do for you? Let us know if there's nothing, or if you want to schedule a demo. We have account managers like myself located not only around the country, but around the world. And I believe there was a question here. The first question that came in was a participant from Africa. Yes, I believe we have some people out there that can help you out. So please get a hold of us, visit our websites. We do have some great information about the Orbis, a lot of other projects that we've done in the past, some white papers and some things like that on our website that have information about a lot of this stuff, but also all of our other products that we talked about and I mentioned today. So first off, awesome job, Jason. Thank you so much, Ken. Thank you for our hosts as well for helping us out here and getting us all set up. We'll go ahead and start the Q&A here. Let me just get to those. Like I said, I think the first one was about the salesperson in Africa, so I think we got that. But one of them was wondering if the Orbis scanner allows you to pause a scan for whatever reason, wait a few minutes, and then continue the scan from where it left off. I think we answered that a little bit, where you can do stop and go scanning. Yeah, you can stop and talk to somebody for a little while, and yeah, it's still scanning, but just know you're going to get a million pictures all of a sudden start showing up in that same location. But Ken, Jason, what are your thoughts on that question?
Like in my experience, yes. I have never tried, but I mean, you stop the scanner, it's going to stop collecting. But we have had something and stopped and then just picked right back up where we left off. But you physically shut it down and turn it back on. But you're right. You can stop walking. It's going to collect the data. It doesn't hurt anything. You're just going to get a lot more dense.
Yeah. Your file size just goes up every second you talk.
Yeah. So there's no specific pause button on the Orbis, but what I would say is, as the guys have mentioned, all you need to do is actually just stop. We do actually stop to collect the flash scans for 15 seconds to create that higher accuracy, higher dense area. But if you just stop and want to do whatever, keep it going. And then later on in the software, you can actually filter out all of that data. So a large amount of data that's collected, or larger amount of data that's collected, can then be filtered out later on in the processing. So you don't have to end up with millions and millions of points that you aren't going to use.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Another question, not so much of a question, but maybe a shout out to you, Jason. Michelle Lee, I guess, worked there from 99 to 2001. She used to work in the old haunted house on Berry Road in Kansas. So yeah. They're in Texas now. So
that is quite funny. We had an office that was allegedly haunted, and everybody that worked there had an experience. That's funny. Well, hello.
Be okay with the ghost to work there. Yeah, that's interesting one. All right. Can the Orbis mobile mapper be used to create 3D models of forest landscapes to help identify critical zones of fuel reductions or fire prevention strategies? Which models, sure. It's hard to create models of trees and things, but yeah, it can be done, of course. What are your thoughts, guys, on this question?
Yeah, I think if I understood the question correctly, I would say pretty well yes. I think, as you saw from the examples that we showed, once you're out there with the mobile scanner, you're basically picking up everything. You're picking up the trees, you're picking up the canopy, you're picking up debris on the ground, you're picking up tracks, you're capturing basically the entire environment. So then it's just a question of clearing it out to make a terrain model, if that's what you want to do. But also, if you want to do some volumetric work on fire or something that's sitting on the forest floor, it is possible. Just have to do it with the right analytical software. But as you can see, you're basically picking up everything that's visible, both from a point cloud perspective or a laser point perspective, but also from imagery. So therefore, it's much easier later on to do the interpretation of whatever it is you're specifically looking for when you capture that data.
And that's what I would add it is with the vision, you can go in there and your model may not see it, but you can tag, so you can visually get a picture of everything and you can tag stuff. And we have done that in the past as well.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say, Jason, to one of your slides that you did, or maybe it was Ken, yours. I worked with once the Michigan State University, and this was before the forestry department there, and before we had any mobile mapping solution. You know, we eventually sold them a tripod-based solution because that's all we had at the time. But you know, they actually created their own software to extract out the bark from the leaves and then be able to do volumetrics of those, you know. So it's not only what software is out there right now, but just think about software that can be created. And now with AI in this world and the world we're going to walk into here soon with AI, I mean, who knows what you can do with this data and fire protection strategies and prevention strategies and things like that. I think, you know, there's endless things you can do with this type of information.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case, Brady. And I know that static terrestrial laser scanning also has its place in the forestry area, mainly to do with research from universities and so forth. For instance, I know there's an example where high resolution, high accurate terrestrial laser scanners are used to help prove or disprove quantitative structure models. Quantitative structure models are those mathematical models that are used to try and model every single branch of a particular tree, not just the trunk, which the commercial guys are mainly involved in, but also to try and get a cylindrical model, a cylindrical shape of every single branch in a tree to get the exact biomass of that particular tree. And for that, you really need the highest accuracy, most detailed model from laser scanning. And that's where terrestrial scanning is useful. Of course, if you wanted to do that for 1,000 trees, wouldn't be so efficient or productive. But certainly there's a place for both static laser scanning and mobile laser scanning within the forestry segment.
Thanks. Appreciate that. For Jason or anyone, when performing cross sections on a route survey or in a forest, what are recommended grid line intervals when using the Orbis and or a focus? Maybe project specific, would that probably be, Jason?
Yeah, and I'm trying to make sure I understand the question.
When performing cross sections on a route survey or in a forest, what are recommended grid line intervals?
When you collect the data, as we know with handheld, it's just you're walking around loops inside of loops. I mean, that's the big thing. And as far as your grid lines, like cross sections, you know, when we did, say, if I understand it right, you know, when we're cross section that creek or that road, it's kind of your intervals based on what kind of data you're wanting. You know, when we're going through curves, you're going to get a lot tighter cross section than you would on a straight stretch. As far as collecting the data on a cross section, it's just basically walking around in loops inside of loops.
Okay.
Does that? I hope that kind of answers that question.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they were more talking about traditional methods, but yeah, with the Orbis, you just literally make sure you're crossing the same path, you're kind of starting and stopping in the same location, and or you're doing open loops. Yeah. Making sure you're identifying those open loops within the software.
An industry standard is you do 50-foot cross sections.
Okay, there you go. That'll work. Yeah, we've got a few more questions we need to get to as well. I think that one's pretty good. How does Blink compare to the Focus? Why choose one over the other? I think today was more focused on the Orbis, but the Blink is more of an imaging-based scanner. It's not meant for you to just, you know, for you to prefab things off of or use for redesign. It's more for a quick, really great imagery, but point cloud behind it scan. The Focus scanner is going to be our bread and butter, the most accurate scanner out there, followed by the Orbis and then the Blink right behind that as well. They come in pretty close together. But Kind of two different scanners, two different speeds as well. The focus might take a little longer as the blank only has one scan time. Another question, great examples, Jason. What softwares have you used to co-register clouds from static scans with clouds from mobile scans?
Well, at our firm, we use Trimble terrestrial equipment, Trimble GPS and Trimble total stations. And therefore, we use Trimble Business Center for our cloud-to-cloud registration. Connect does have that option, and we have used it as well. But
and I know FARO's Scene software as well has that option as well. For
most of your, from what I've seen, most of your scanning specific softwares have that ability. And I'm not sitting here to promote Trimble. That's just what we use.
Yeah. We all have similar functionalities within our software now. It's pretty much known. What kind of accuracies are you finding within building locations compared to total stations?
To answer that, I'm going to get back to where it's the right tool for the job. I mean, depends on how you're locating that building. If you're just going out there and you're shooting it with an offset with a GPS, you're going to get a tighter location, in my opinion. If you take a 1 second robotic total station and offset your corners and do all that, you're going to get a lot tighter. But I can say that from what I've experienced with a good geo-referenced point cloud, if I had to throw a number on there, probably plus or minus 500s.
Cool.
If you take the time to really dig down and pick the middle of that point cloud noise that I was talking about, but it's been good.
Great. A couple of these I can take real quick. How do you filter out people out of the data? Just through the software. Softwares have algorithms that can get rid of people automatically, or you can manually delete people or objects within your scan that aren't supposed to be there. Weekly rentals. We don't do them directly through FARO, but we have some partners located in the U.S. and or outside that do rentals. So get a hold of FARO. We can get you a couple companies in mind to go and rent from, or just kind of Google it. You might find a few within the U.S. that rent out. The Orbis scanner as well is our focus, and our Blink scanner.
And I will add on the software. In my experience, it's about 80 to 90% of the cleaning can be done in your software, and then the last 10% is you fine tune it. But the software does a large portion of it.
Great. With the Orbis, if you tag a reference point multiple times within a scan, does that help the algorithm tighten up the scan? And then this might be a good conversation to talk about the rigid and non-rigid things, Ken, if you can maybe touch on that a little bit.
Sure. I don't want to go into Survey 101 mode at the moment, but sure, within the processing software, which all the handheld scanners has, there's different ways to do the processing. But when it comes to doing georeferencing for coordination, then of course it's best to do what you would normally do as a surveyor. You would want to do a minimum of 4, get some redundancy. Also, if you've got a large area, make sure you've got some control points, which you use as part of the scan on the exterior areas, so that you're always within that. You're not extrapolating any of the data outside of the control points. Further to that, as Brady mentioned, the processing software, when it comes to doing the georeferencing or the, let's say, the connection to the control points, which have been pre-surveyed, there's a couple of ways to do it. And some of these methods use rigid transformations, and some use non-rigid transformations. A rigid transformation will try to move the point cloud to the control points without changing the relative spacing of each point in the point cloud. So it will move the point cloud to try and best fit onto the control points. Non-rigid will do that, but in addition to that, what will happen is the relative position of each point in the point cloud can or may move slightly to get a better fit onto the control points. And that movement or internal movement of the points will probably be more significant near to where the control points are. So that's the kind of difference, a very simple explanation of what the difference between rigid and non-rigid. And also within the processing software, there are a couple of ways to do it. We can do reflective tape, we can do spheres, we can do off trajectory control, or we, as Brady mentioned right at the start, you can take the handle of the Orbis and go straight onto a control point, whether that be a nail in the wall or a nail on the ground. And that's how we would do it. But in general, I've also seen reports that too much control is not a good thing either. So look at the area that you're working in, make sure there's a minimum of 4 or 5, make sure you're within the area rather than outside of the area of the control points, and you'll have good results. Not forgetting, of course, that with SLAM-based systems, it's always good to start and stop at the same area, and also do certain loops within the trajectory or that you're walking or driving with the system. And after that, when you look at that sort of parameters, you'll end up with a good result.
Awesome. Perfect. Thanks, Ken. All right. I think that answers most of the questions. There was a couple other ones. How is this compared to Rock Robotics handheld scanner or Leica scanner? How much is your scanner? I'm not going to answer those here today, but and I'm not too familiar with those as well. But you know, just know that this product hasn't just been around for a few years. You know, it was developed, you know, 2013. And over the last 12 to 13 years, this SLAM algorithm has been revamped and really perfected. I have not once had this thing break on me. It's not meaning fall and break, meaning the registration fail. It is very robust. It is very fast. It's getting better as far as the imagery goes, the data quality, the accuracy improved when we acquired it. So I think just overall, it's a great tool for this type of applications that Jason and Ken talked about today. So I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you so much for the presenters, our hosts, everybody who came in here and had questions. Also, you know, the FARO marketing team, Jerry, thanks for setting all this up. Appreciate that. And then, you know, again, I'll probably get killed that I haven't mentioned this yet, but we do have a product called Sphere XG. It's where all this data can live in the cloud. So if you're wanting to learn more about Sphere XG, please get a hold of me or your FARO rep, or just go online and ask a question there, and we can get a hold of you to talk more about our cloud-based solutions where you can host all this data and share it. Or our products like our Orbis, our Focus, our Blink. It doesn't really matter. And again, Jason, thank you so much. Ken, thank you again. You guys did great, and have a good day.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye now.